March 15th, 1944, Tokyo, Japan. In a dimly lit room at the Yotsuya Communications Unit, headquarters of Japanese Naval Intelligence, Commander Atsuzo Kurihara stared at a transcript that had defied his best cryptographers for 18 hours. On his desk, a third cup of bitter tea had gone cold. The intercept, originating from the Marshall Islands during recent American operations, was unlike anything his team had encountered. It was not random noise. The timing aligned with Marine Corps attack patterns. The duration matched operational briefings. The frequency usage conformed to U.S. military protocols. Yet the language itself remained utterly impenetrable. A structured, rhythmic stream of sounds that bore no resemblance to English, French, Dutch, or any known Allied tongue. Kurihara commanded one of the world's most advanced signals intelligence operations. The Yotsuya facility, formerly the I-1 unit, employed 500 personnel, operated 118 radio receivers, and deployed 20 direction-finding stations across the Pacific. His cryptographers had broken the U.S. State Department's Purple Code before Pearl Harbor, decrypted British naval ciphers, and penetrated diplomatic traffic from half a dozen nations. Yet this new transmission, repeatedly intercepted since Guadalcanal in 1942, remained a complete enigma. What Kurihara did not know, and what no Japanese intelligence officer would ever understand during the war, was that he was listening to the only unbroken code in modern military history. A story of this code did not begin in a signals bunker or a cryptography lab. It began centuries earlier, in the high desert of the American Southwest, where the Navajo people had preserved a language so complex, so isolated, and so resistant to outside influence that it would become an unassailable fortress in the war against Japan. Diné Bizaad, the Navajo language, belonged to the Athabascan family, and, in 1940, was spoken by approximately 170,000 people, almost entirely confined to the 27,000-square-mile Navajo Nation, spanning Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, and Colorado. Its structure was unlike any European or Asian language. It was verb-oriented, with meaning built through intricate combinations of prefixes that could generate millions of word forms from a single root. It employed 4 distinct tones: high, low, rising, and falling, where a slight shift in pitch could transform eagle into coyote or attack into retreat. Its phonology included sounds absent from most world languages: ejective stops, consonants produced with a glottal burst, a voiceless lateral fricative that mimicked wind through teeth, glottalized sonorants, and nasalized vowels. To Japanese linguists, trained in a language with only 5 vowel sounds and no tonal variation, the rapid, tonal, glottal-rich speech of Navajo was acoustically indecipherable. Even if they recorded it, they could not accurately transcribe it. Even as they transcribed it, they could not parse its grammar. The man who recognized this linguistic fortress as a military asset was Philip Johnston, born in 1892 to Protestant missionaries on the Navajo reservation. By age 9, he was translating sermons for his father. By 15, he had accompanied Navajo leaders to Washington, D.C., where he interpreted for President Theodore Roosevelt. Fluent in Navajo, a rarity among non-Navajos, with fewer than 30 such speakers in the world, Johnston understood that this language was not just culturally rich, but strategically invulnerable. In December 1941, after Pearl Harbor, Johnston read that the U.S. Army was experimenting with Comanche speakers in Louisiana, echoing the Choctaw Code Talkers of World War I. But those efforts were improvised and limited. Johnston envisioned something revolutionary, a formal, expandable military code built entirely within the Navajo language, unbreakable because it required fluency in a language no enemy possessed. On February 28, 1942, he demonstrated his idea at Camp Elliott near San Diego. 4 Navajo volunteers transmitted tactical messages that took 20 seconds to send and decode. The same message, encrypted with the standard M209 cipher machine, took 30 minutes. Major General Clayton Vogel was convinced. He authorized a pilot program. On May 4, 1942, 29 Navajo recruits enlisted at Fort Wingate, New Mexico. They included Chester Nez, Carl Gorman, Lloyd Oliver, and John Benally, young men from remote hogans and boarding schools, some punished for speaking Navajo as children. Others who had never left the reservation. At Camp Elliott, they spent 8 weeks in a guarded, windowless building, creating a military code from scratch. Their task was monumental. They had to invent terms for modern warfare that did not exist in their language. They did so through cultural metaphor. A submarine became bashle, iron fish that swims under the surface. A battleship was lotso, whale, the ocean's largest creature. Fighter planes were da'ai, hummingbirds. For their speed and agility, bombers were jaisho, vultures, circling before striking. For the alphabet, they developed multiple Navajo words per English letter to prevent frequency analysis. The letter E, the most common in English, had 4 alternatives. Code talkers rotated randomly among them, destroying any statistical pattern. They memorized 211 initial terms, no written codebooks, no notes. Capture meant total security. Chester Nez later recalled, "We practiced endlessly. One mistake could cost lives. In our culture, words have power. Speaking correctly was sacred." The code's first combat test came at Guadalcanal in August 1942. 15 code talkers landed with the 1st Marine Division. The Japanese, who had decrypted other Allied communications, expected to anticipate every move. But suddenly, Marine radio traffic became incomprehensible. At Rabaul, Japanese 8th Fleet intelligence officers scrambled to analyze the transmissions. Lieutenant Kazuo Yamada, a Stanford-educated linguist, reported, "The sounds are structured like a language with consistent patterns, but they do not match anything. No European tongue, no Asian dialect, no Philippine or Chinese variant. Completely alien." Japan responded with unprecedented effort. They assigned top cryptanalysts, recorded hundreds of hours on wax cylinders, consulted university linguists, and even brought in Buddhist monks who studied ancient scripts. Nothing worked. On November 8, 1942, Chester Nez transmitted artillery coordinates that destroyed a Japanese machine gun nest. The 14-second message was intercepted, but remained meaningless noise. Within minutes, American shells fell with pinpoint accuracy. Colonel Haru Konuma of the 17th Army wrote in despair, "The Americans have deployed a code that defeats every attempt. We can no longer anticipate attacks. We are fighting blind." Japan's best hope came in the form of Joe Kiyoshi Kiuna, a Navajo soldier captured at Bataan in April 1942. Fluent in Navajo, he was brought to the AA interrogation center and forced to listen to code talker recordings. He heard Navajo words, but in combinations that made no sense. The turtle is attacking the iron fish. A hummingbird is carrying eggs. When he could not translate, interrogators accused him of lying. The abuse escalated. In the winter of 1943, they forced him to stand naked in the snow until his feet froze. They starved him to 90 pounds, offering food for translations. Yet Kiuna could only repeat the truth. He understood the words, but not their military meaning. A Japanese intelligence report from May 1943 conceded, "The prisoner appears native to the mysterious language, yet cannot comprehend the messages." Assessment: either extraordinary resistance or the enemy uses a specialized code within the native tongue, requiring specific training. The second assessment was correct. Even fluent Navajo speakers could not understand the code without training. Tiuna survived 3.5 years of captivity. His failure convinced Japanese intelligence that they faced something unprecedented. By late 1943, they largely abandoned efforts to break the code. The Marines, meanwhile, expanded the program. Major General Alexander Vandegrift declared, "The Navajo communicators have proved invaluable. Their transmissions are faster than any coding device and absolutely secure." A formal Code Talker school opened at Camp Pendleton, graduating new classes every 8 weeks. By war's end, 375 to 420 Navajo Marines had served in all 6 Marine divisions. Training was brutal. Recruits transmitted messages while wearing gas masks, running to exhaustion, and enduring simulated artillery barrages. Thomas Begay, who enlisted at age 15, said, "They pushed us beyond what was possible. Lives depended on our precision. The code was sacred." The code evolved constantly. New technology demanded new terms. The atomic bomb became IEBNININI, metal egg that explodes. Kamikaze pilots were Nazi, wind of death. Every addition was logical to Navajo speakers, but incomprehensible to outsiders. Japan, desperate, offered 10,000 yen, 10 years' salary, for the capture of a code talker or his equipment. Several close calls occurred, but no code talker was ever captured with his gear intact. The code's strategic impact grew with every campaign. At Tarawa, November 1943, 6 code talkers maintained communications for 76 hours of brutal fighting. Lloyd Oliver transmitted continuously for 48 hours, coordinating naval gunfire under constant shelling. At Saipan, 24 code talkers operated day and night. Japanese intelligence, which had anticipated the invasion through conventional decrypts, found itself blind once Marines landed. At Peleliu, code talker Jimmy King transmitted for 6 hours after his partner was killed, coordinating artillery for 3 battalions with 40 flawless messages under direct fire. But the code's greatest triumph came at Iwo Jima. Major Howard Connor coordinated the entire initial assault through Navajo Code. 6 code talkers worked in teams for 48 hours, sending and receiving over 800 messages flawlessly. They directed the landing of 30,000 Marines, naval gunfire from 100 ships, close air support, enemy positions, medevacs, and resupply, all under constant fire. Major Connor later testified, "If it hadn't been for the Navajos, the Marines would never have taken Iwo Jima." General Tadamichi Kuribayashi's underground fortress, built over 2 years with 11 miles of tunnels, depended on intercepting American communications to trigger counterattacks. That plan failed completely. Colonel Shigeo Hayashi reported, "Artillery requests completed in 20 seconds via Navajo would have taken 30 minutes conventionally. The difference between destroying positions and losing them." At Okinawa, 35 code talkers coordinated the Pacific's largest assault, 183,000 troops over 82 days. Japanese forces tried to jam transmissions and mimic Navajo voices. Lieutenant Hiroshi Miura's attempt, according to code talker Alfred Newman, sounded like someone gargling while trying to talk. On August 14, 1945, code talker Teddy Draper transmitted the war's most significant message, "Nahastli Aniltso Dzilyaji," Japan surrendered. The message passed through Navajo faster than conventional channels. A fitting end to the code talkers. Were After the war, American interrogators uncovered the full extent of Japan's failure. Lieutenant General Seizo Arishue, head of Japanese intelligence, admitted, "We never broke the Marine Code." Captain Yasuji Kawamoto was specific. "We recorded thousands of transmissions. Our best linguists studied them for 3 years. Nothing worked. It was our single greatest cryptanalytic failure." The inability to read marine communications cost thousands of lives. The program remained classified until 1968, as the U.S. considered its use in the Cold War. The Code Talkers returned home unable to speak of their service. They came back to states that denied them the right to vote, until 1948 in New Mexico and Arizona, 1957 in Utah. They were heroes who could not reveal their heroism. Chester Nez, the last of the original 29, died in 2014. He wrote, "We were warriors who helped win the war, but we couldn't tell anyone. The weight was heavy." Many found healing through traditional ceremonies. Danaki explained, "We had used our language to direct death. We needed it for healing. The ceremonies reminded us that our language was sacred." In 2001, President George W. Bush awarded congressional gold medals to the original 29. Only 5 survived to attend. The Navajo Code introduced the concept of cultural encryption, security through linguistic barriers that no mathematics could overcome. It influenced post-war intelligence and remains relevant today as quantum computing threatens mathematical cryptography. Colonel David Hatch assessed, "They achieved something unique, a code never broken, never compromised. It proved that human linguistic capability could overcome mechanical cryptography." Today, Navajo is recognized as strategically important. Young Native Americans study ancestral languages with new pride, proving that indigenous knowledge is not a relic, but a living asset. Japan's failure was not just tactical, it was ideological. The empire that proclaimed racial superiority was defeated in part by the very diversity it dismissed. As Lieutenant General Arisu admitted, they were challenging an opponent whose strength came from incomprehensible sources, an America they could not fathom. The Code Talkers embodied that America, united, diverse, and unbreakable. Their greatest message was not sent over radio waves. It endures in every native child who speaks their ancestral language with pride. In every recognition that minority contributions strengthen the whole. In every understanding that differences make us stronger together. The young Navajos who used their sacred language as a weapon, and then as a tool for peace, demonstrated forever that America's greatest cryptography is diversity itself, unbreakable because it arises from limitless human experience, wisdom, and resilience. They prove that our differences are not weaknesses, but strengths to be celebrated. And in that truth lies the eternal code of liberty. Many voices, many peoples, many languages, united yet diverse, creating a nation that cannot be broken. The story of the Navajo Code Talkers is more than a wartime footnote. It is a profound testament to the power of language, culture, and quiet courage. In a war defined by machines, mathematics, and industrial might, it was the human voice speaking an ancient, sacred tongue that delivered one of America's most unbreakable advantages. Their code was never cracked, their legacy was nearly silenced. But today, their truth echoes louder than ever. Diversity is not a weakness, it is a nation's deepest strength. If you believe history should honor those who served with humility, ingenuity, and unwavering resolve, subscribe to this channel. We go beyond the headlines to uncover the real stories of World War II. Meticulously researched, deeply human, and told with the respect they deserve. Because the heroes who changed history deserve more than a footnote. They deserve to be remembered in full.